Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Poetry Night here in my Christmas lighted Tumblr inspired poetry room. Today we're going to be talking about The Unknown Citizen by W.H. Auden, written in 1939. So let's have a quick thesis statement. In The Unknown Citizen, W.H. Auden uses tone, irony, and structure to exhibit his views on individualism and the role of government. Okay, so let's kick it off right at the beginning. This poem is unlike many poems. It's not necessarily supposed to be like a written verse or a song or to be spoken. It is the inscription on the bottom of a monument. And we know this because it's prefaced with, to JS 07M 378. This marble monument is erected by the state, which is actually a rhyming scheme, which is cool, but not that important. So this immediately sets up a difference in the tone of the author and the speaker. So the speaker is referring to the subject as JS 07M 378. The author is referring to him as the unknown citizen. So, for the author, knowing a certain jumble of random numbers and letters is not enough to know someone. Whereas, for the state, that's enough of an identification. And that's a theme that's represented throughout the poem. That to a government we are represented by public opinion polls and statistics and meaningless data, and that we are not, in fact, individuals. And that individualism itself does not carry any sort of importance. So, just to illustrate this, let me read a short passage here. In the modern sense of an old-fashioned word, he was a saint. For in everything he did, he served the greater community. Except for the war, till the day he retired, he worked in a factory and never got fired, but satisfied his employers, Fudge Motors, Inc. Yet he wasn't a scab or odd in his views, for he paid his union reports that he paid his dues. Sorry about that little mix-up there. So, what is this telling us? This is showing that here is a marble monument erected by the state to someone that they consider a saint. And yet, all the things they're saying about him are normal, very normal. In fact, kind of oddly normal things. Right? When there was war, he went to the war. Except that, he worked in a factory. He lived a dull life. The best thing they can say about him is that he wasn't odd or a scab, and that he satisfied his employers. There's nothing exemplary about that. There's nothing incredible about that. There's nothing monument-worthy about that. So, that forces us to ask, what does a government want out of its people? What does the state want from its individuals? And the answer is not to be individuals. They want complacency, which is where the irony in this comes in, because this is a poem about being an individual, which is illustrated again by the difference in tone between the title and the preface, and including the rest of the poem. Again, down at the bottom, the last two lines, which are a rhyming couplet. Was he free? Was he happy? The question is absurd. Had anything been wrong, we certainly should have heard. So this is Auden showing us that what does the state care about? Not that he's free, not that he's happy. It cares about that he listens to them. So let's talk about how the irony is facilitated. in this poem, right? How do we know it's ironic? How does he show us that it's ironic? The structure is odd, in a word. Another word that could describe the structure is bad. The structure is bad. It's a bad poem. And this is because it's written by some faceless man in a gray suit behind a desk who has to write something for an inscription on a meaningless person's monument. It's not written by someone who's good at poetry. It's written by the state. So when it goes from an A-B rhyming scheme to rhyming couplets to rhyming Fudge Murders Inc. 6 lines later with the word drink, it's 'cause it's a bad poem. This is the same reason that there is almost no imagery in the poem. There is very little figurative language, metaphor, simile, any sort of anything that we think of as beautiful or poetic or flowing properly is absent in the poem. And this is off-putting, and it's supposed to be off-putting. That's because it's a good poem masquerading as a bad poem, if that makes any sense. It's Auden's take on what a government wants and the problems inherent in a bureaucracy, in a government. Sorry, I had a short dog-related interruption there. Anyway, there were 2 other things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the diction in the poem as well, and in playing into the tone and therefore into the irony. In this poem, he uses a lot of diction referring to normality. That he held the proper opinions for the time of year. Right? That reports on his conduct agree that he was a good guy. There was no official complaint about him. He was normal. There's a lot of these sort of normal or official words, specifically in referring to how he was known, how the government saw him or knew about him, through the Bureau of Statistics, which say that there's no official complaint against him, through social psychologists who found that he was popular with his mates and liked to drink, through producers' research and high-grade living, through the press and their eugenist, which says he had the right number of children for a parent of his generation. So here's the government declaring what the right number of children is, right? What a good person is, and their idea of a good person is someone who doesn't go against the rules. Another thing that they mention, that's mentioned in it, is that he had everything necessary to the modern man: a phonograph, a radio, a car, and a Frigidaire. And this is just a little glimpse, especially that line, is a glimpse into Auden himself. In an interview that we read a long time ago, he said that he really didn't like technology, that he didn't like cameras because they didn't allow someone the ability to look away, which is kind of an odd idea, because we think of cameras are everywhere, they're ubiquitous. He didn't like typewriters. He thought it was sort of mechanical, and there was nothing passionate about writing on a typewriter. So he's showing that the idea of happiness, that everything necessary to a modern man is a phonograph and a radio and a car and a Frigidaire. And so it's all new technology, basically. It's all materialism. So, more or less to wrap up, this is a poem about irony, about what we're told to be versus what we should be. And it's a poem that uses a lot of different techniques to facilitate that irony, to show that discrepancy in what we're told, and what maybe we should believe, and what we should question. Anyway, thank you for listening to my commentary and making it this far. Have a nice day.